Hi, this is Denise Fuller. I am she. I am such an amateur at posting things on YouTube. However, I love poetry. So I will be reading a portion of my book. The book is titled Poetry and Prose, My Words in No Particular Order by Denise Fuller. The book is broken down into 8 sections, and this particular section is a series of about 5 very short stories. This is part 2. I just taped part 1 and realized that a portion of one of the stories was cut off. So I'm going to read that story again, and it's titled What the. So here goes. He called to say that he was just around the corner and that he had something for me. The call caught me completely by surprise. He's never called me at work. Luckily, I had just finished with my staff meeting, and the to-do list was longer than the pencil that I had used to write it with. I was a little agitated that he was so close, but anxious at the same time. After our disagreement last night, I was so hoping that what he had would not draw any attention to me, while a small part of me hoped that it was something so extravagant that everyone at work would be like, "Wow, who gave you that?" He texted me when he pulled in front of the office. I waited a few minutes before I gracefully walked out to meet him. Luckily for me, I was wearing my gorgeous brown suit, the one with the split in the back. And I hadn't had time to switch from my tan pumps to my comfy office shoes, which gave me a little extra confidence as I calmly walked to his car. I pretended to smile as he glanced up, looking at me, so damn fine. I was hoping that he could not hear my heart pounding, nor could he smell my feminine aroma so close to his passenger door. I guess the look on my face was disturbing because he asked if I was okay. I faked it and I said, "Yes, I'm just a little hungry." He had the nerve to ask me what I was hungry for. I skipped the subject and reached in and took hold of the big blue bag, which clearly had my name written on it. I didn't want to appear too eager, so I displayed a nervous grin and said, "Thank you." He indicated that there was no card. There was also a card inside, but he asked me if I could wait until I got home to read it. I said, "Sure." He gave me a half smile, and then he said that he had to go. Don't ask why, but I stood there and watched his car drive off, wishing that I was going with him. As I walked back into the building, the suspense was killing me. The bag was so heavy, I immediately went to the ladies' room and opened it. Much to my surprise, for lack of better words, it was filled with everything I had given him, along with a note that simply said, "I'm sorry, it's over." I must have stayed in the stall for what felt like hours, sobbing, wondering, what in the hell just happened? Remembering my youth. When I was 8, the view from the top of the street was narrow and steep. At the bottom, there was a huge wooden field and a small entrance. It was shaped like a cave, and during the night, big black bats would fly around in the sky. On the right side of the street stood tall, slanted apartment buildings. They were old red brick buildings with no character at all. The wooden steps squeaked and smelled of old people. We lived on the second floor in a cramped one-bedroom. I hated sleeping on the living room floor with my big sister. Why couldn't I have my own bedroom, I wondered. I never went out back to play because the only view that we had was of St. Elizabeth's Hospital. The patients were crazy, and I was always afraid that one would escape and come after me. I played across the street where the grass was greener, the prettier side, the wealthier side. In my mind, I lived there too. It was our house with the big yellow kitchen. and a bay window so wide you could see the entire neighborhood. It was our staircase that led to the 3 huge bedrooms on the second floor. The pink one was mine, the one with the big white canopy bed and the pink and white ruffled bed skirt. I especially liked the pink lamp. It was shaped like a pair of ballerina slippers. And I had my very own bathroom. I hated when my mother called my name. I knew that it was time to come home. Come back to the other side, the unattractive side, the dark and lonely side. Keeping secrets. I knew that getting Kelly that computer was a big mistake. She is consumed with the internet and she never comes out of her room. I blame myself for our lack of communication, and I still can't bring myself to tell her the truth about her dad. If she knew that he was still alive and a plane ticket away, I'm sure she would have run away years ago. In my efforts to make up for his absence, I overworked myself at the office and underworked myself as her mom. I know she is keeping secrets from me because whenever we say less than 2 words to one another, my suspicions usually prove correct. And although I would make a conscious effort to ask her about her day, the only response I ever get is I'm fine. I'm so close to losing her and I don't know what to do about it. She'll be a senior next year, and my infamous because I'm your mother, that's why, will no longer work on her. She already has 1 foot out the door, and if she and I didn't agree on anything else, we both agreed how important her education was. When she leaves for school this morning, I'm going to surprise her by cleaning her room and doing her laundry. Whenever she had asked me to in the past, I would tell her in my very stern and motherly voice, I won't always be around to pick up after you, young lady. It was just after 8 when she was heading towards the door to catch her bus. What happened next caught me totally off guard. She came over to me, and just as I was about to take a sip of my caramel honey tea, she gave me the biggest hug ever, along with the kiss on the cheek. Stuck in a trance, I simply didn't know how to take it. And before I could reciprocate, she was out the door and off to school. Wow, I thought to myself, how strange was that? Anyway, I went up into her bedroom, and as usual, it looked as if a cyclone had just hit it, and the only thing left standing was her bed and her computer. She had forgotten to turn it off, and the green power button was still flashing. As I walked over to push it, there was a picture of a man bending down on one knee, still displayed across the monitor. He was holding what appeared to be a heart-shaped diamond engagement ring. As I looked closer at the guy's face, I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe my freaking eyes. It was her dad. Under the photo was an instant message that read, I can't wait to start our life together. You are a dream come true. I love you always. P.S. Don't forget your passport. Feeling blah. It was 2 a.m. and my eyes were barely open as I got up to pee. Something that I did at least 3 to 4 times a night for as long as I could remember. It still boggles my mind that people can sleep the entire night without having to use the potty at least once. It was a ritual for me. I could do it with my eyes closed if I had to. Trying not to step on the dog would be my only challenge. As I tiptoed toward my sunburst orange-colored bathroom, I would always laugh on the inside. When we first purchased the house, I used to think that every room was so small, and now that I live here alone, even the master bathroom seems to swallow me whole. Not knowing that I would one day have the option of choosing a color that I actually like, the current color is something I wish I could take back. But for now, it remains sunburst orange. No matter what the color choice was, it didn't take away from the fact that I could literally walk in, turn right, sit down, and do my business. Then I'd go over to the sink, turn around, dry my hands, and crawl back into bed without any lights and without waking up Max. Stretched out on the hardwood floors like a piece of carpet, I'm sure the chill in the air suited him just fine. But as for me, I could not sleep without at least 2 comforters, my electric blanket, my pajamas, and a pair of socks. And most importantly, I needed complete silence. No music, no television, and certainly no cell phones ringing. Although I could not control the noise at work, I took comfort in knowing that once I got home at the end of each workday, I could lock the door behind me and there would be solitude and silence. Minus the 4-legged freeloading canine. Anyway, as I rushed to pull the covers over my face in an effort to fall back into dreamland, a little voice in my head said, "Sometimes I feel like a patient." How strange was that, I thought, as I drifted off to sleep. Without even realizing it, the next morning, I somehow found myself at the community hospital looking for a parking space. Upset that I didn't have any coins for the meter, I took my chances. I knew that it wouldn't be long. After all, it was just a slight headache. Rather annoying, but still slight. To my surprise, the doctor decided to admit me for an overnight observation. A day turned into a week, and as each day passed by, the tests seemed to run on and on. One by one, people around me were being discharged. No one could give me any answers concerning my condition or when exactly I could go home. The nurses were repeatedly drawing blood, taking my temperature, and bringing me meals. The days literally turned into weeks. And although my nurses' faces remained the same, my roommates kept changing. And come to think of it, I hadn't received any visitors, not one single person. Where's my cell phone? Is anyone out there searching for me? Who's caring for Max? Who's collecting my mail? My symptoms haven't changed and life appears to be moving in slow motion. I'm somehow outside of myself, watching myself as the Golden Girls and infomercials repeat themselves over and over again on the television. When will I check out? When can I get out of this bed and go home? When can I have my life back? Yes, it was boring, but it was mine. So what? I haven't had a date in 3 years. Yes, I've missed all of the family outings, and no, I haven't been to church in ages. All I could think about were the hundreds of emails going unanswered, overdue reports, conference calls and meetings, statistics and graphs, proposals and revisions, deadlines and follow-ups. Who would they find to replace me? Frustrated and resentful, irritated and exhausted, I began to yell, "Nurse! Nurse! I've changed my mind. I made the whole thing up. The symptoms, they were all in my head. Can I please go home now?" "No, ma'am," she said. "You're dying. Is there anyone we can call?" The end. So, those were my short stories. And a little bit about my writing. In 2005, I discovered that I could write poetry. Completely oblivious. Oblivious to me, I had no idea that I could write poems. Then I decided to start writing stories. Again, I had no idea that I had that gift inside of me. And I had began to write story after story after story. And I had written about 23 short stories and was ready to publish my book. And then I got saved. And then I started reading the stories again, trying to figure out what was pleasing to God and what was not pleasing to God. So instead of going back and forth, I wrote poem after poem after poem, and I published 2 poetry books. My second book is also published by Ex Libris, and it's titled Poetry and Friendship. Stay tuned.